The grand plan. Roy began spending time out in the neighborhood with buddies. He came in one day thrilled about a new thing he had learned. He couldn't wait to pull it on me. He started laughing and punching me in the arm, saying, "Frog, frog." Once or twice would have been enough, but he kept on. I was backing up and saying, "Quit, ow, that hurts." In the blink of an eye, a gray being popped into the hall beside me. Roy and I were frozen. The being looked at us, then touched one finger to my upper left arm, causing great pain. After telling Roy to not do that anymore, the gray popped out. When we came back to animated life, Roy had stopped punching me. "Look what you did," I scolded, brandishing a perfectly round, solid black bruise on my left arm. Roy denied he had caused it, reasoning that bruises don't develop so quickly. Besides, it was black and bruises aren't black. Indeed, it was black as coal and perfectly circular with a delineated line. It looked very unusual. I said, "Well, you're supposed to be my brother. You're not supposed to hit me. You're supposed to look out for me." Duly chided, he agreed. Years later, it occurred to me that Roy was left-handed and had been punching me in my right arm. The gray had mistakenly bruised my left arm. When Judy was only 12 or 13, she came out of the bathroom very concerned. "Jennifer, I just found something weird. I went to the bathroom and when I wiped, this strange thing came out," she said. She described it as looking like a tiny white piece of tissue because it was flesh-like and it had 2 black dots on it, like eyes. But it was white, not pink or anything. With curiosity, she had examined it carefully before flushing it. She was not sexually active and knew it was impossible that she could have been pregnant, yet she felt strongly that it was a tiny fetus. Later, when the beings had come for this hybrid fetus, they found it missing. After examining my sister, they decided to question me. What had happened? Where was it? I related the entire scenario of her coming out of the bathroom after examining it, right down to the flush, and I realized for the first time that the poor thing would now be underground. Placing a picture in my mind of the ground behind our house, I thought to them, "I don't know how you're going to find it. It's in the ground." Keying off of me, they became alarmed. It's strange how easily they were influenced by my opinion that the fetus needed to be rescued. It set them in immediate motion to try to recover it. Within days, our dad began digging up the pipes in our backyard. He had decided it was time he cleaned out the septic system. He was doing the work himself, and by hand. His tools were shovels, buckets, and a pair of work gloves. He was out there every day, sometimes long after dusk. After digging up all the pipes, he went for the tank at the kitchen window. Now, mind you, our dad was not an abductee. This came from our mother's side of the family. This shows that the aliens can instruct non-abductees to act. Usually this is done by sending telepathic thoughts. Through the window, I watched him examine every scoop as he emptied the bucket. Once, I even asked him what he was looking for. One evening, I decided to see for myself. As the light of day began to fade, I stood beside mounds of dirt and pebbles piled alongside gouges, blind attempts at tracking the hidden path of pipes beneath. Rains had dissolved the upturned earth into miniature mudslides. The backyard was a mess. And to my dismay, he would track mud in on his shoes. His blue jeans, caked with mud, dried on top of the washing machine in the kitchen. I wondered what it must be like for them, these mysterious, elusive, and heaven-bound creatures visiting this scene in the night. I pictured them standing where I now stood. I wondered if such a tiny thing as the fetus could be found. I cannot say if it ever was. Yet, why was my offhanded suggestion that it needed to be found so important to them? It seems they valued my opinion, which I continue to find very strange. As kids, we often attended the Baptist church that lay just outside our neighborhood. We walked the 2 miles, carrying our tithes in our pocket. Sometimes we walked a little further and bought penny, nickel, and dime candy with only fleeting pangs of guilt. God would want us to have the candy, we reasoned. We learned all the traditional Sunday school lessons and songs. At age 13, it was time for me to be baptized. The preacher dunked me in the water, and I came up looking like a drowned rat. That's okay, because I felt refreshed, renewed, lighter. I believed in God and Jesus, and I was saved. I had turned my life over to the Lord and invited in the Holy Spirit into my heart, as well as I understood that to mean. This next memory has presented many questions. I am standing in the front room that faced the yard and road. This was my bedroom. To my left stood a being, my being, the one I had grown accustomed to seeing. To his right stood a female spirit formed in a long dress. The gray said that she is going to reside in me. There was no telepathic communication from her at all, so I am not sure about her stance on this, or even how conscious she was. She was in his company, him having a say over her. She was not a bad thing, I could tell, but I felt afraid and uncertain. There would not be any debate, the gray pressed. This decision had already been made on my behalf, by who or why I do not know. This was the way it was going to be, and that was that. He was not being mean, but nor was he going to take no for an answer. He said I would have just squandered my life away, wasted it. She, on the other hand, would make use of it. Her living my life would further some long and ongoing work towards some grand plan, the thought of which seemed to make him happy. One day in the future we would all be together, and this would be wonderful. There was a sense of freedom and harmony. In his opinion, it would be a positive, almost glorious time. I still had my reservations. To appease me, he projected a scene of a young girl on a swing on a lovely day. One of them was standing by, not looking any different than us. The girl started to fall, and the now human-looking person, because you couldn't call him alien, was able to immediately freeze her to prevent her from falling and injuring herself. The point was that there were benefits from them being among us, and us being together. This did not impress me enough to eagerly embrace the proposition. I still did not want her to take my life. It meant that I would lose mine, and who would want to lose their life, to have it taken away from them? He went on to explain, more with concepts than words, that otherwise I would become one miserable human being. My concerns would be self-centered, living only to satisfy the ego. No higher purpose would be served, certainly not towards some grand plan. He then showed me myself in the future, moving through a very troubled life, very unhappy and never fully understanding why. Still, what would happen to me if she entered into my body? But I had no time to be afraid. It was over in an instant. There was no astounding transformation. There was no amazing change in consciousness. Once the event was over, I simply forgot about it and went on with my life. My main questions about this are, did she have anything to do with me being baptized and inviting in the Holy Spirit? In Christianity, the concept of holiness implies being set apart or dedicated to divine or sacred purposes. Alien researchers on the show Gaia have said many times that the aliens had a hand in our religions. But let me jump right in and add that aliens lie. What they say cannot be trusted. I'm sorry, but once you deceive me, I will never trust you again. Also, where did he get her, and is she the one who would later recall my many past lives? Let me clarify that question by saying that in 1993, I began remembering past lives, not just one or two, but 14. I was journaling at the time, a suggestion given to the abductee support group members. I began chronicling my abduction memories along with my past life memories. They became the source material for this book and another book. That book is called Memories of My Past Lives. There are so many hidden and sacred teachings in the Bible. When Jesus said that he must die so that the Holy Spirit could come to bring comfort, did he metaphorically mean that his ego must die? Was this woman considered a Holy Spirit that would deny living for the ego, which would only bring misery? This is my best interpretation of this encounter, especially when many years later, my attention was drawn to a young woman walking down the street. She was disheveled and despondent. You could tell that her life had been chaos and turmoil. The message was, this would have been my life if I did not have a Holy Spirit. I looked at how unhappy she was and shuddered at the thought. Please give a like and share. And as always, stay curious.